Good morning. My name is Captain Phil Katz. I'm the president of the Vista Fire Department. I'd like to welcome you all to the Vista Fire Department's September 11th Memorial Service here at the Lewisboro 9/11 Memorial. We gathered to honor the almost 3,000 people who perished on that fateful day. Welcome to the members of the Lewisboro Police Department, the members of the South Salem Fire Department. Welcome to our honored guests, Supervisor Peter Parsons, to our chaplain, Reverend Nikki Edelman. Welcome to our town board members, Tony Gonzalez and Jane Crimmins. And welcome to the members of the Vista Fire Department. Because of the current struggle with COVID-19 pandemic, we chose to do a socially distanced service with limited attendance and to pre-record the service for publication on September 11th. Our first speaker this morning will be the town of Lewisboro's supervisor, Mr. Peter Parsons.
Good morning. I'm Peter Parsons, your town supervisor. Thank you for inviting me to this ceremony, which is really important because it is vital that we don't forget those who sacrificed their lives to help us. I grew up in the middle of the Blitz in a town called Swansea, which was flattened during the war. Everybody remembers the fact that our soldiers died in large quantities on the beaches of Normandy, but at times they forget the number of firemen who died during the Blitz, getting people out of houses, getting people out of fire shelters, getting people to safety while the bombs were still falling all around them and at times on them. So, since my father was one of those firefighters, a volunteer, not a professional, I'm very well aware of what happened. And I think it's appropriate that I read a poem which is normally associated with soldiers, but is equally applicable to firefighters and all first responders. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. They mingle not with their laughing comrades again. They sit no more at familiar tables of home. They have no lot in our labor of the daytime. But where our desires are and our hopes profound, felt as a wellspring that is hidden from sight, to the innermost heart of their own land, they are known as the stars are known to the night. As the stars shall be bright when we are dust, moving in marches upon the heavenly plain, as the stars that are starry in the time of our darkness. To the end, they remain. Thank you.
Would everyone please remain standing for the invocation by our chaplain, Reverend Nikki Edelman.
Thank you for inviting me here today. I'm the Reverend Nikki Edelman from the Stevens Memorial United Methodist Church, and it's an honor to serve as the chaplain at the Vista Fire Department. Thank you for including me today in this ceremony. Please hear these words, a prayer adapted by Father James Martin. Loving God, you know that we believe in you. You know that we trust in you. You know that we love you. But sometimes life is so painful your ways impossible to understand, and your world so confusing. Sometimes we are overwhelmed with pain. Sometimes we feel tempted to despair. Sometimes we give way to hatred. Sometimes we doubt even you. So God, in times of pain, we ask that you give us comfort. In times of despair, give us hope. In times of hatred, give us love. In times of doubt, give us trust. And even when we feel far from you, be close to us, loving God. Amen. Been reflecting in recent days on a passage from Romans chapter 12. In my Christian tradition, this is a letter written by a follower of the way named Paul. And he was writing to the people of Rome. He said these words, "Let love be genuine, hate what is evil, hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection, outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal, be ardent in spirit, serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope, be patient in suffering, persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints, extend hospitality to strangers. Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another, do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. Do not repay anyone evil for evil, but take thought for what is noble in the sight of all. If it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." I can think of no better example of a person embodying these words than those first responders who sacrificed everything on 9/11/2001. And so today, as we honor the memory of those who sacrificed and those who died on that day, I ask that we remember that God intends for us to live peaceably and to not repay evil with evil. Not an easy charge. Not an easy charge at all. And in the years since 9/11, our country, our communities, our families have struggled with just that charge. Today we are facing yet another great challenge to not only our country but to our world. The coronavirus pandemic has already taken 180,000 lives. The trauma that we are experiencing now can mirror that trauma that we had in 9/11/01. And we are charged yet again in this time of pandemic, of widespread racial injustice and protest, economic fallout that we haven't seen in a long time, and of course, all the political back and forth that has become so divisive and so polarized in our country. The trauma that we are all experiencing is indescribable. And so I ask of everyone this day, as we remember the trauma of 19 years ago, to think about how to respond to our current trauma. May you not respond on social media with blame, finger pointing, and name calling. May you not respond at the dinner table when a racist remark is said with complicit silence. May you not respond to the cries of those who are in pain with anything other than joining them in those cries. For we are to rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. May it be so. Amen.
All please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All, please welcome Lieutenant Dave Russell of the Fdny, now retired.
Good morning. My name is Dave Russell. I'm a retired lieutenant from the City of New York Fire Department. I am also a volunteer firefighter in the town of Pound Ridge and a mutual aid responder here in the town of Vista. I am honored that they asked me to speak on this very, very serious and solemn day. I can't believe it's 19 years since that day happened, the attack. Again, a day that started like any other day, ended unlike any other day. The deadliest day in American history, which continues to kill to this day. On that day, I literally lived 4 minutes from here. I was at home, working on my house, our house, and my wife called, and my house was literally gutted. And you could literally see from one end of the house to the other. And for whatever reason, I happened to hear the phone, and she called, and she says, "You're going to work," meaning we got a fire. My wife knows all the fire lingo. And I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "You're going to work." So, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, a small plane just hit the World Trade Center." So in so many words, I said, "Baloney." And she goes, "Turn on any channel, it's on every channel." So I went upstairs to the one room where we were living, and I turned on my little black and white TV, and there it was. And I just started counting the floors, and I told her that was no small airplane, I gotta go. I gathered up my stuff, and at the time I was a lieutenant in Engine 62 in the Bronx, and I had a choice of either going straight to the scene or go to the firehouse. So I elected to go to the firehouse as a company officer and see what's going on. En route, the second plane hit. There was a total recall, and we gathered to the firehouse. We mustered up all the spare equipment we could. Then we went over to the division, 7th Division on Webster Avenue, also in the Bronx, where myself and another lieutenant commandeered a city bus. We loaded up about 60 firemen, and off we went down to the site. The driver ended up getting us on the FDR Drive, and it was like the eeriest thing you could ever see. There was no traffic northbound or southbound, just us. And as we made the curve past the United Nations heading south, as I call it, you saw this horizontal tornado coming from Manhattan to Brooklyn, just a plume of smoke. And as we got closer and closer, then you started seeing civilians walking up towards us. Some were dressed just like you, others completely covered in dust. Then you looked up on the Brooklyn Bridge, and you just saw literally half of humanity walking to Brooklyn. The bus driver got us as close as he could. We buried it up by City Hall. We gathered our guys. And the only way I could describe it is when you're walking out there, it was like a nuclear winter. You know how it is when you're outside and in the snowstorm and the blizzard, everything's muffled? That's how it was, except it was dust. It was just eerie, beyond eerie. And we started walking. I had my guys, and I just remember a chief came out of the dust in the middle of Broadway, literally 4 or 5 feet from us. He just appeared. Said he had an engine company in trouble and he needed help. So I looked at my guys. We went. by the time we turned around, we lost the chief. And you could not tell where you were from one area to another, not even realizing until we traced our routes that later on that day we had walked right by the firehouse 10 and 10. And we went walking down, you could start feeling heat coming through the dust. And the next thing you know, we appeared and there was an engine company hooked up to a hydrant, pumping water away, nobody around it, and the whole top of the rig was on fire. And that's how we basically started our day. And we just went around the entire site working as wherever we could, finding guys that you recognize and said, hey, have you seen so-and-so? Nah, but I did see so-and-so, you know. And as you met other guys that day, when you saw them, you said, nice to see you, brother. Never meant so much in your life. And then you start seeing the company apparatus, and Squad 41, where I was a fireman, you saw the rig, and it was slightly damaged. So in your mind, you're thinking, you know, the guys are okay because the rig's okay. And you just move from one thing to another to another. It was just amazing. Any individual piece of that day would have been the biggest thing in your career ever. Watching Building 90 have fire in it. The Marriott Hotel crushed. Building 7 on fire. And just as you went around and around, it just steadily got worse. That day, I watched a 57-story high-rise collapse in less than 8 seconds in front of me. That would have been the biggest thing in your career. But it was just, let's keep going. And again, the best of humanity and the worst of humanity. I don't know what time it was because we lost complete track of time. I do remember somewhere on the west side, this rabbi showed up with a basket, and he had pita bread with salami on it with mustard. And that was like eating filet that day. Most amazing was, I don't know how he got in where he did, and there wasn't an ounce of dust on the food. It was like he just appeared. Just like, again, that was like, you sat there and laughed. He's like, oh my God, this is awesome. And you would kill to eat ice if you could get it. You saw the EMS people there. And again, we started realizing that by the end of the first day, there wasn't much to be done, but we were still in rescue mode because we were still looking. And you started listening about the companies and guys that were missing, and so-and-so, and so-and-so, and the numbers just added up. So it's a 24-hour day went into something like 72 hours. It was just the longest day of my life, you know. But on the other side, my poor wife is home, and neighbors started to come over. A couple people from the fire department came over, and they were manning the phones because family and friends are calling up, what's going on, because everybody heard about the New York City Fire Department. And while in the middle of that, my wife gets a phone call from my military unit. On top of everything else, I've been activated. So that really made it feel good. And she's like, do you know where he is? And the guy goes, no, ma'am. She goes, well, why don't you go Corporal Klinger, using her MASH that she knows. Get in your little Jeep, drive down here and get him and bring him back to the base where he's safe. But it was just the best of humanity. The town helped rally around my wife. I did not get home until Saturday. Saturday night, I spent the whole week down there. Went back in, and then we went on rotation. Then I ended up doing 6 months at Ground Zero. Would I do it again? Absolutely. The thing that I always remember was one of the slogans was never forget, but it's pretty sad that after all these years, we had to have members go down and shame Congress to do the right thing. We literally have in the FDNY thousands of members who are sick. We just buried our 200th victim of 9/11. The NYPD, I do believe, has 241 who have died of their illnesses. There's over 68 related cancers just alone with this disease. Just this morning on my way over here, one of my military guys sent me a picture which made national coverage. It shows the two towers burning freely, the Brooklyn Bridge here and ladder 118 coming from Brooklyn into Manhattan. Ladder 118 is a tiller rig. That's the old two-piece rig. and it was the last run. Everybody in that company was killed that day. On that day, we lost 343 Fdny members. Of that, I worked with over 100 of them because I'd been in many places. And again, as I said today, to this day, is still killing us. So again, in this day and age of turmoil and everything else, do not ever forget your first responders, because they don't care if you're Republican, you're Democrat, they don't care anything. When the bell goes off and the run comes over the radio, they go. They don't see color, they don't see religion, they don't see political bias. So at this time, always remember to support your first responders. And again, as a fourth-generation firefighter, I grew up in a firehouse. I know only one way of life, and that's to help our fellow man. So I've had a good life, I've had a good career. I've enjoyed my time with the city fire department, with the volunteer fire service. Again, never forget and always, always support your first responders. Thank you, and have a safe day.
Honored guests, brothers and sisters of the uniformed services, elected officials, and the public. Today we gather to remember those who were lost on that fateful day in September 2001. On that beautiful Tuesday morning, we all went about our business, many for the last time, not knowing the tragedy that would unfold early that day. On 9/11, lives in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., and New York City were lost as a result of a coordinated terrorist attack against America and against the free world. The attacks of September 11th, 2001 resulted in 2,977 fatalities, over 25,000 injuries, and substantial long-term health consequences. Of the 2,977 victims killed in the September 11th attacks, 412 were emergency workers in New York City who responded to the World Trade Center. This included 343 firefighters of the Fdny, including a chaplain and 2 paramedics, 37 police officers of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey Police Department, 23 police officers of the NYPD, 8 emergency medical service technicians and paramedics from private companies were killed, and 1 patrolman from the New York Fire Patrol. The Fdny deployed 200 units to the site with more than 400 firefighters on the scene when the buildings collapsed. This included a total of 121 engine companies, 62 ladder companies, and other special units. Our uniformed services executed one of the largest workplace evacuations in U.S. history. The evacuation was successful as an estimated 87% of all occupants in the World Trade Center Towers 1 and 2 exited in less than 2 hours. Over 30,000 lives were saved at a cost of 412 of our bravest and our finest. When others ran out, our brothers and sisters ran in. And as a result, 30,000 families, mothers, wives, sisters, brothers, sons, and fathers were spared the hardship and grief of losing a loved one. The toll on our firefighters did not end on that day. Fire Commissioner Daniel Nigro said in 2019 that it is almost incomprehensible that after losing 343 members on September 11th, we have now had 200 more Fdny members die due to World Trade Center illness. Today, another tragedy unfolds. COVID-19 has claimed over 180,000 lives in the U.S. alone and has had severe global economic consequences. Our uniformed services, along with medical workers, once again run in while others run out. Those who choose to stay at their posts and who continue to answer the call of duty risk potential life-threatening illness in the service of the public. Today's uniformed services carry on the tradition that honors the conviction of those first responders who perished on September 11th, 2001, and those who continue to suffer the effects now and into the future. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man may lay down his life for his friends. John 15:13. Now, in these troubled and divisive times more than ever, we must continue to support and foster the culture of service to our communities, of volunteerism, and to support those who meet the challenges on our behalf. I want to assure the members of our community, when you are having the worst day of your life, a health crisis, a car accident, fire or natural disaster, your uniformed services will be there for you and your family. Yet this promise comes at a cost. The nature of first responders' work exposes them to death, grief, injury, pain, and loss. Coupled with demanding schedules, physically challenging job requirements, and a lack of safety and security in certain work situations. Repeated exposure to death and destruction can result in emotional trauma, which can lead to mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, and in the worst cases, suicide. Suicide rates among firefighters and police are 40% higher than for the general public. It is all our jobs, in the words of Lincoln, to care for him who shall borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan. We must never forget those lost on 9/11/2001 or those they have left behind. Please take a moment to donate to one or more of the nonprofits that help the families of the fallen, such as the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation. God bless America, and may God continue to bless our uniformed services. Thank you. Please rise for the laying of the wreath. All right.
these words. Loving God of peace, on this anniversary of unbelievable sorrow, comfort those who mourn and guide our hearts toward healing and hope. Remind us of the love of Christ, love which leapt over cultural and ethnic boundaries to feed the hungry, seek the lost, and care for the least. Make of your children, no matter how we name you, one human family, bound together in the work of justice and peacemaking. Make us one with the light that shines in the darkness and illumines a path toward understanding and reconciliation. Let love be our genuine call. Amen.